We were talking about moving into Invictus Games, but before we do that, if we can go back and talk about what you do with backup, because I feel like that's a really interesting part of your life. That now hearing what you said about someone coming to you in hospital and like that was your light switch moment. Now you provide that for, I mean, you probably provide it for about probably hundreds of people now at this point. So yeah, what's your role with backup and what do you do to help them and other people?
Okay, yeah, so as I said earlier, I first met them when they came in to the spinal unit and had a chat and did wheelchair skills. So I stayed in touch with them, touched base with them a couple of times after coming out of hospital, and then it was probably about a year and a half after my accident that I then went on a backup course as a participant. And it was a multi-activity course set in Exmoor, so a really lovely setting, and it was over, I think it was about 4 days, so yeah, a long weekend, doing all various bits and bobs, abseiling and games in the gym with these huge blow-up balls that are like this big that we could hit with our wheelchairs, and we did stuff on the boat, in a boat as well, on water. Little dinghy boats. I think you could only have 2 people per boat. So on this course I met a lot of other people that were at different stages after their injury. It's not necessarily people that are newly injured, although quite a lot are. It could be someone that's been injured, 5 or 10 years, but have, for whatever reason, maybe hidden away a little bit, haven't explored certain things or mixed maybe so well with other people's spinal injuries, lots of different reasons why you would go. But it was just brilliant. People from all walks of life, all different ages, all put together on this amazing weekend, run by all the volunteers that work for Backup. And all in all, it was just such a positive experience. And yeah, it just made me sort of keen to want to carry on having a relationship with Backup. So it wasn't long before I became a volunteer. So they put me on a training course, which was really good, just to help me be able to present myself correctly and to get the right message across, which was very helpful. And ever since then, sort of on and off, I've been going into Salisbury Hospital. I've also done the Rookwood Hospital over in Wales a couple of times as well. So going in and talking a bit about Backup and teaching wheelchair skills and going around and spending a bit of time with the patients as well, which was quite important for them. I've also volunteered on a couple of Backup courses. So I went back and volunteered on the same Exmoor course that I was a participant on. I went back a couple of years later as a volunteer. And I have also, a few years ago, became a mentor. So again, another training course, which is what Backup are really good at doing. They don't just take people on and chuck them out there. They put you through proper training so that you can feel more confident about what you do and deliver things in the right way. So it helps you and helps whoever you're talking to. And you've always got someone to feed back to at Backup, at the office. So there's always someone there to support you and go back to. So they are, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, the mentoring is another bow to my arrow or whatever the saying is. God, please don't put that on there.
With the I found that when I started coaching with my swimming, it gave me much more confidence in myself and in terms of being able to present not only present my message, but be able to have more confidence in my own day-to-day life. Did you have that same sort of experience with the Backup? Did you feel like you made progression in your own life?
Definitely. I've always said from day one that I need something to get out of bed for. I need to have a sense of purpose and a goal. Otherwise, I just feel empty and lost, and it's not a good feeling. It's not healthy. So doing stuff with Backup, it gave me all of those things. And obviously mixing with other people that were like-minded in a similar situation as well. And it's that whole giving back. you know, like you said, we were saying before, the little things that you take for granted, that when you're newly injured become these huge, massive challenges that, or obstacles or walls that seem impossible to climb. If you have someone like ourselves that are a little bit further down the road, even just only been injured a couple of years, it makes all that difference to go in and give something back to these people. It really does help them on their own recovery. So it gave me a sense of worth. It made me feel like I was useful. When you have a traumatic injury like this, you're literally ripped out of the life that you were in before, and then you go through a bit of a recovery process, and then you're sort of plonked back out there again, and it's like, what do I do now? And it's really hard to try and explain that to somebody, and it can be quite overwhelming. You know, even 10 years down the road for me, I still have the odd moment where I feel a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit sort of, right, what do I do? Where do I want to go? What should I do myself? You know, and I always need to make sure that I've got something going on in my life to stop that happening.
And talking about things going on in your life, let's move on to the main reason why I have you here, which is the Invictus Games and your wheelchair racing. How did that all come about? How did it was getting started in that and eventually going there?
As I said, I was always sporty and active before my accident, and I've continued that after my accident, just obviously a little bit differently, using just my arms. So I very quickly got into hand cycling, still do a lot of gym-based stuff, and I also became a personal trainer as well a couple of years after my accident. So I've kept quite a good relationship with sport and fitness. And then, as I mentioned before, a few years ago, things took a bit of a turn for the worse with my health. Ended up in and out of hospital, big operations, lots of recovery. And it's actually, I walk my dogs locally here at a place called Potton Park. And quite often I bump into a chap called Bernie, who is a leg amputee and also ex-military. And we've chatted quite a few times. We know a bit about each other's background and whatnot. And it was Bernie that suggested that I get in touch with Help for Heroes and maybe do some sports stuff with them as part of my recovery after all these surgeries that I had. And he had mentioned the Invictus Games, which I did know of because I had seen the very first one in London, and then they had Orlando 2 years later. But at first it wasn't something that really kind of made me think, I want to do it. It was just, maybe. I guess I just wasn't sort of in the right place for it. And so, maybe another couple of weeks would go by, and then I'd bump into him again, and he's like, have you joined them yet? And then eventually I did get onto the internet and had a look around their website, and I came across the Invictus Games. And sort of had a little bit of a read, and it was around the time that the Paralympics were on. And the moment that I had that made me realise it was something that I would like to know more about was I was sat in bed watching the wheelchair racing, and I think it was Hannah Cockcroft, who was a well-known name, and I remember watching her coming down the track and thinking, I'd love to know what that feels like. That just looks amazing. And really it was after that I sort of felt a bit inspired to, send my details over and apply to the Invictus Games, and it wasn't long before I got my first email inviting me to my first camp. So it all happened pretty quickly. So I decided that wheelchair racing was, going to be my main sport. So I found a local coach and athletics club, which are based over at the Ashdown Leisure Centre in Poole. And I went down there, and they chucked me in this old racing chair that was like a bus. It was an absolutely huge thing. It was bright orange.
So one size fits all.
There you
go.
So I did a few laps in that. I was ridiculously slow, couldn't even stay in lane, but I loved it. And there's such a good bunch down there. They're so friendly, made me feel extremely welcome. Again, it's another bunch of like-minded people that have similar interests, and I just loved it from day one. It's such a brilliant thing to do, and it progressed from there.
That's great. Yeah. So you say it progressed from there. It excelled from there, I would say personally. So yeah, let's talk about the experience of how did you get selected for the team and actually going to Toronto and competing?
So from when I first applied and started going to the training camps, it was the best part of a year of training, so it was quite involved. On all of the Invictus training camps, you always have proper qualified coaches, and most of them are actually pulled over from the Paralympics. So it's such a wonderful opportunity to be able to work with these coaches. They're just brilliant. I also got my own racing chair. So once I was sure that it was a sport I wanted to pursue, I then went ahead and got my own racing chair, which fits me properly and stays in lane. And it just went on from there. Just lots of coaching, lots of training, getting fitter and stronger. A little bit of work in my own gym here at home. I also did some training at the gym in Burwood called the Hub. I also did some indoor rowing as well. That was my second sport that I did for the Invictus Games. But the wheelchair racing was always where the love was. The rowing is great. It was a great experience. But it's pretty intense. The rowing is. Where do I go from there?
Well, let's go on to
just
when did you know you were going?
Oh yeah, okay. So initially we trained for about 4 months. As I said, going to all these various camps and whatnot, and then we had to go to trials, which were held in Bath. And so the trials were over, I think, about 4 or 5 days, and everyone competes, and obviously being watched by the rest of the team, and then they go off and they decide on who they're going to select. But the difference between the Invictus Games and the Paralympics is the Paralympics obviously want to go on the fastest, the quickest, the strongest. The Invictus Games isn't like that. It's not about the strongest. It's about what this journey will mean to you in terms of your recovery, and using it as a stepping stone to go from a bad situation, a bad place, onto something better. So they look at a lot of different factors, and they look at your commitment as well on all the training camps, how hard you've worked, how much effort you've put in. So again, you might not have been the strongest, but you've worked really hard to be there, and you really want that place. So with all these factors put together, they then decide who's going to be selected. So there's no way of knowing, because you could go to trials and you could be not necessarily one of the fastest, but you'll still get selected because of other factors. So it's a real waiting game, and it's a good couple of weeks before you find out if you've got through, and it's sort of waiting for that email. I can remember sitting in here actually, and my phone beeped, and opened it up and quickly reading down, and really excited to find out that I'd been selected. I was just over the moon. I've been happier. I felt so, privileged to be able to have the opportunity, and then the real work really starts, because then you've got your place, and you don't want to let anyone down, and you're going to go and compete for your country, and it's just amazing. It's almost a bit surreal at times, but trained really hard, went to lots of competitions around the country so that I could get that race experience, so that on the day I wouldn't be so fazed by crowds and the start gun and that sort of stuff. I really enjoyed that, absolutely loved it, meeting other athletes, and some quite well-known athletes that were doing really well in their careers, and having the opportunity to race alongside them at some of these competitions was in itself was brilliant, and such good fun. Training camps carried on and led us right up till September, and then off we went. There's 90 of us in total, across various different sports, all out to Toronto, in a huge hotel with all the other nations.
Yeah.
So it's 550 competitors in total, all put together, plus all friends and family and all the coaches and staff. So we pretty much took the hotel over for those 10 days.
It must have been quite fun.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
As soon as you came into the hotel, into that lobby, there was just a continual buzz, a really, really positive, good vibe. Always something going on, you know. And by the end of the 10 days, obviously you go out there as a team or as a family, you know, the UK family, I'd rather say, than a team. But by the end of the 10 days, because you've mixed with all the other nations, you're then one even bigger family.
Yeah.
And you can't describe that. Even, like, I know they showed a bit of stuff on TV, but that's the sort of stuff that you can't get over.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be there to experience it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Obviously, the competitions that I did were amazing, loved every minute, but there's also another side to it.
Yeah, it's just that whole experience altogether.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. It's about the journey. It's not about the medals so much. Obviously, we wanted to go out and do well and bring some medals home, but it's not all about that.
Yeah.
It's about that journey.
That's straight from
and
the selection process, obviously. You know, it's not about the fastest people, it's about your journey. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing competition, and like I'm a little bit jealous that you get to do it. Like obviously, like I'm so glad you've had this opportunity to really do that. Like, and the effects it has on like your mentality, and that is incredible. Really, yeah, it's a really, really good thing. And I know some other people that have been, and it's exactly the same situation.
Yeah.
They say it's all about the experience of the event rather than the outcome.
Definitely.
Yeah. Although the outcome